We're back at it again with another stream of consciousness off the top of the head review. Because this needs to go out now. Because I'm a chaser of clout. I will completely admit to that. And once again, we're talking about the Ninja Turtles. Or rather than the Rise TMNT, or TMNT 2012, we're going to be discussing the new movie that came out, TMNT Mutant Mayhem. Co-produced by Seth Rogen and directed by Jeff Rowe. And if you don't know that name, he co-directed and co-wrote The Mitchells vs. the Machines, so we're in good hands. We have our talking points, we have our list of things to discuss, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. And we're going to start off with the animation. Fantastic animation, really, really good, really solid. A lot of people like to say it's copying off of Spider-Verse, because apparently every movie that drops a few frame rates for certain scenes means that they're copying off of Spider-Verse. But if you're going to copy somebody, you may as well copy something good. And even then, TMNT Mutant Mayhem does a really good job of standing on its own through the character designs and the background designs and just the general design of the movie. Even if they're copying the motion philosophies in terms of animation of Spider-Verse, they're able to carve their own identity just based on how grungy and purposefully ugly everything looks. Normally being ugly wouldn't be considered a compliment, but here it's ugly with a purpose because Ninja Turtles was never the prettiest franchise. It's always been very grungy. I mean, it's a bunch of turtles who live in the sewer, and mutations over the years in the franchise have been pretty horrific. So to lean into that philosophy and purposefully make the characters ugly, I think was an excellent choice because it gives them more of an identity in the face of not only other animated movies, but other TMNT properties. In addition to really strong character design in both the humans and the mutants, we also have really good animation when it comes to the action sequences. Everything flows really nicely, everything is snappy, everything is action-packed. Things move real fast, it catches your attention. It's difficult to say. It's really good. They do a really, really good job with the fight sequences. And they don't hold back on them either. When I say that, I don't mean that there's blood or anything. God forbid Leonardo chops someone's arm off. But they don't hesitate to get creative. They don't hesitate to go a little nuts with the animation when it comes to the fight sequences. And I like that. I do. Next, we're going to talk about the characters. These are the most teenage of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles you will see in a long, long time. Like, when we think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we kind of like laser focus in on the mutant or the ninja aspect of it. And very rarely does it feel like they're teenagers. In the original cartoon, and admittedly in the 2003 series, they kind of felt like grown-ass men. The 2012 series kind of rectified that a little bit. Rise definitely leaned into it more, but here they feel like the most teenage they've ever been, and I think that's an absolute positive. It's good to see a more, I don't want to say kiddie, but a more youthful, energetic turtle, especially in the way they interact with one another, because not only do they act like normal teenagers, they act more like a family than they've ever been. They playfully rib on each other, they give each other noogies, they hug, they do whatever, they fight. It's a legitimate family. Again, it's another aspect that other properties like the 2012 or Rise series have tried to lean into more, but these turtles feel not only like the most teenager, but the most family that they've been. And that especially applies to Splinter. Splinter here is the most fatherly you'll see in a minute. You've seen it a little bit in Rise, with the way he'll playfully poke jabs at his sons, and maybe a little bit in 2012 where he'll straight up beat his kids. But here, Splinter feels like a legitimate father, and he does what he does out of love for his sons. Even in the context of teaching his son ninjutsu. Because in this version, Splinter has absolutely no connection with Hamada Yoshi whatsoever. As a matter of fact, up until the post-credit scene where you see the Shredder, the Foot Clan is not mentioned once. And we'll get more into that later. But here, Splinter, similarly to the Michael Bay movies, he learned ninjutsu from an outside source, but instead of just reading a random ninjutsu book that he finds in the sewers, Splinter here learns how to do kung fu or karate from self-defense videos. And he passes that knowledge on to the turtles because he wants them to be able to protect themselves in the event that humans who he sees as monsters are out to get them. Because the one time he tried to go to the surface, they nearly killed him. Splinter here, legitimate father figure, honestly probably one of the best Splinters I've seen, and I hope they do more with him in these upcoming iterations because a sequel and a show has been announced. So if they're not going to connect him to the Foot Clan in any way, I'm hoping they're able to explore him in other areas. April was good. I liked April. She was definitely a point of contention for a lot of people because they made her black and they made her plus size. Those people are stupid. Those types of things don't really matter. What matters is the performance, and what matters is the writing. And she was written very solidly. She's an upcoming journalist who wants to use her passion to make up for an embarrassing moment of her past. And her interactions with the turtles they're sweet, they're fun. She's able to see them as heroes at first and is willing to help them clear their name so that way the humans don't see them as monsters and the turtles can live the life that they want to live among humans. She does a good job. I really like April here. As opposed to the villains, Superfly and his gang don't really show up until like halfway through the movie. I mean, you'll see glimpses of him here and there, but in terms of like actually introducing us to him, hearing him speak, seeing his personality, he doesn't show up until like halfway through. And he's a fine villain for who he is. He's not Baxter Stockman, as some of you might believe. He was created by Baxter Stockman, as was the rest of the gang, like Bebop, Rocksteady, Ray Fillet, Mondo Gecko, etc., etc. And him as a villain, he serves his purpose as a threat. Ice Cube does a good job voicing him. Unfortunately, but expectedly, he gets the majority of the spotlight compared to those around him, which is a shame because those around him again include mainstay characters in the franchise like Bebop and Rocksteady, Wingnut, Leatherhead, and others. When it comes to original villains within this movie, they do not get the focus that I would have hoped they had gotten. The focus is more on Superfly and the head of TCRI, Cynthia Utram, who may or may not be an Utram. They do nothing to hint at it besides her name. But even then, she's only in the movie for a little bit, and she's mainly used as source of to focus on for either the sequel or the show. So the focus is all on Superfly. Baxter Stockman, unfortunately, only gets about 3 minutes in the movie before he straight up dies. And that's really unfortunate because I love the way he looks, and I love the aspect of him that he wants to create his own family of mutants. It could have been something interesting to see in his interactions with the turtles. Like maybe he could lay claim that he is their real father and not Splinter. And that could have led to something interesting about a conflict between who the turtles consider their father. But unfortunately, it looks like he's out of the picture. Again, unless he somehow shows up in the sequel or the show. The writing is also incredibly solid. Like I said, these turtles are unabashedly teenager. They are also unabashedly New York. This movie is incredibly New York. As expected, there's more of a focus on the mutant aspect as well because the main cast of villains are mutants. There is no Foot Clan, at least not in this movie. And unfortunately, as I said before, Hamato Yoshi does not... I'm assuming he doesn't exist. Either way, he's not Splinter. And Splinter does not have a connection to the Foot Clan, period. So hopefully we get a little more. We do get to see the Shredder in the mid-credit scene. So he's definitely going to be set up for future movies or the show. But it is unfortunate because the Foot Clan is one of the mainstays of the TMNT franchise. But I'm okay with that. What Mutant Mayhem does with the material is so different than all other TMNT origin stuff. Like, there's no Krang, maybe, unless Cynthia Utrom is a Krang. There's no Foot Clan. It's just the Turtles, Splinter, and April are the only ones that are consistent with typical Ninja Turtle origins, along with TCRI. And I'm fine with that. And the Turtles at the end of the movie, earning their way into human society and being a normal part of a high school, I'm okay with that. They're being experimental with a story that we have seen retold again and again and again for almost 40 years. Think about that. Ninja Turtles have been around for 40 years. And they're doing a lot of unique choices with them, and I'm all for it. I would rather they do something off the wall, a little bit crazy, and maybe it doesn't go through well, than tell us the same story that we've been told over and over and over again, while saving the stuff that we love, like the Foot Clan or the Krang, for stuff later on. They did the same thing for Rise of the TMNT, and a lot of people didn't like that, but then the stuff that we loved came into Rise regardless, and people realized, oh god, we missed out on something great. So hopefully the lack of stuff like the Shredder or the Krang or stuff like that aren't putting people off when they can realize, let's give this another chance, because there's a lot to love about this. It has a really great soundtrack, it has really great animation, it has really tight characters, the most teenage the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been, and the most familial the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been. Really great designs on the mutants and on the humans. It has a really great cast. All the voice actors do incredible jobs. Even the ones that you wouldn't expect to get a lot of shine, like Post Malone, Hannibal Buress, Ice Cube. They went crazy with the cast, but crazy in a good way because it all worked. I would rate this incredibly high. I wouldn't put it past Spider-Verse, because Spider-Verse was a fantastic movie, like genuinely art. But I would say that TMNT Mutant Mayhem was probably the second best animated movie I've seen all year. It's incredible. What it does with the material, what it does with the animation, what it does with the characters and the cast. It's a really, really solid movie. And I hope that not only Ninja Turtles fans give it a chance, but the general public gives it a chance. Just as a little sidebar, when I went to see it in theaters, I was probably the only adult without kids in that theater, and at first it made me feel a little silly. But then I stopped and thought about it, and seeing the amount of kids there to watch the Ninja Turtles, it gave me a sense of pride that the material that we loved and that we grew up with has transcended generations. Because if you think about it, those people who grew up with the 1987 Turtles probably looked at kids like me watching the 2012 Turtles the same way. And here I am, 10 years later, watching those same kids watch this new Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles have transcended generation upon generation. It's like Scooby-Doo in a way. There's always going to be a new Ninja Turtle thing. It might be good, it might be bad, but they'll always stay in the public conscious, and it'll always resonate no matter what generation they're in. And this particular edition is a very solid edition. Between the 2003 series getting a DVD release, the 2012 series getting a DVD release, toys, video games, again, a series and a sequel based on this particular version of the Turtles, we're in the midst of a Ninja Turtle renaissance. And I really wouldn't have it any other way. Fantastic movie. Take your time to give it a watch. Streaming when it comes out, in theaters. however you want to see it. It might not include the stuff that you're used to, but the material they give you is so much worth it. My name is Crit. Thank you for listening.